But anyways, I have a friend out in Los Angeles, and he's always had a huge crush on Jennifer
Love Hewitt?
Jennifer Aniston?
Jennifer Love Hewitt. And so one time he was on a shoot somewhere, and he's walking down the street, and he just sees Jennifer Love Hewitt walk down the street as well, and he's like, all right, I may never have another shot at this again. So she says no, that's fine. So he walked up to her and he just like makes a polite conversation. They go back and forth, and she was like responding really sarcastically, and he's like, this is good. So he finally just gets the balls to ask her. He's like, hey, I'm on a shoot right now until 5:30. You want to meet up afterwards? And she said, yeah, definitely. I'll meet you here at 5:30. And he was like on cloud 9. He goes back to the shoot, and it's like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and then 5:30 is around the corner, and he realized the shoot wasn't going to end until 6:30. And so 6:30 comes, and he missed his shot to ask her out, and he went to the spot. She wasn't there to be found, but worked out in the end. So he ended up marrying somebody who was attractive. So yeah,
It's still a sad story.
it is still a sad story because Jennifer Love Hewitt. If you had a chance to date Jennifer Love Hewitt, you're always going to remember that.
Great white buffalo.
What?
Welcome to That's Alt, where you'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. I'm your host, Bryan McBallz. Here with me today have Jordan Wade.
Hey.
With Kelly CK.
Hey there.
And Tyler from the Hung Fat Noodle Company.
Hey.
You underestimate my power. Don't try it.
Today we're going to be talking about Disney's purchase of Lucasfilm and how this affects the Star Wars franchise specifically. And we're going to preface this and say, I know at first it seemed like everybody was worried about this when they heard the news, like Disney's taking over, they're going to milk the Star Wars franchise. And so I think now we've had some time to stew over it. Everybody's kind of accepted that, hey, it can't be worse than the prequels, right? So it can only be good, and Disney's done some good things. Yeah. So I guess, Tyler, why don't you start us off? Tell us what you think about Disney's recent performance and their, what they've done recently that gives us hope for this new Star Wars.
It's interesting because the very first thing I thought when I heard about it was actually positive. I actually never went into the negative. I never thought oh no, they're going to ruin it. I never thought of all of Disney's fumbles of the past. I mainly just thought of what they've done recently, and recently they've just been really firing on all aces. I think the Tron series, when they rebooted the Tron series, they did it in a very stylistic, dark way, and I really feel like that film was great. The just overall vibe of Tron just made us feel like, wow, this is really good, and they know what they're doing.
Guys, I'm bringing the party to you.
But with their acquisition of Marvel, it was a very bold move, and they proved that again with buying Lucas. If they can keep their track record going with what they've done with Marvel, and I think putting Joss Whedon as a director, as the director of the Avengers, was a great move. If they know how to pick the directors right, if they know how to pick the writers right, if they really put some care and thought into people's memories of Star Wars and the legacy that is there and the importance of it, I really feel like Disney can really knock this out of the park.
Yeah, the thing is too is I'm glad you brought up Tron, because that's another franchise that was Tron came out in the late 70s, the early 80s, and it's they revived it with this last Tron movie, and it's kind of similar to what we're seeing with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of people like to overlook the prequels.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
you're looking back at the 70s and the 80s Star Wars movies, and you're like, let's see Disney do something with this. And what they've done with Marvel too, they let them, they bought Marvel, but they didn't impede on what they were doing. Mm-hmm. They let them run their own house.
Right.
And so hopefully they do the same thing with Lucasfilm. And that brings me to the next question. I guess I'll point that at you, Jordan. Is that now that Lucas is no longer the hive mastermind of this, we can get some new talent and some new perspective on the franchise.
Right, and I think that's incredibly important for the long-term viability of the franchise. Because what George did in creating Star Wars was, it was something that is borderline religious. It was borderline a religion. And what he did was great initially. But I felt like having one mind look over a franchise for its entire existence can cause it to grow stale. Mm-hmm. So I think with Disney purchasing Star Wars, you give it a new lease on life, and you can bring in some new blood. And so far, we've heard rumors of Matthew Vaughn directing. We've heard rumors of Ben Affleck, all these people. I would actually prefer to see someone who's a little less established, because when Lucas created Star Wars, he was, he's hot coming off of American Graffiti, but he didn't have a long track record of films.
Yeah.
And Star Wars was sort of this unproven idea. And in fact, Fox initially was realizing they were taking a big gamble. But I think it's important to bring new blood into it, because you have somebody that's not so worried about keeping their reputation as it is creating a reputation. So bring in directors who are new blood would be good for it.
Yeah, someone who's up and coming, looking for make their name and do the Star Wars right. Especially someone who probably knows a lot about Star Wars, who grew up with it. Maybe they can, steer it in the right direction that everybody's been hoping for.
Yeah.
And speaking of, George did a wonderful thing. He got $4 billion from this acquisition. He donated it all to education charities. I just want to touch on this quickly. Do you guys have any incline on why he sold his? This was his baby. This is what made him. Star Wars and the Indiana Jones franchise is also included in this. So
well, I did see. I read an article where he was talking about how and why he sold it, and he kind of went on to say that he wanted to prepare for after when he left, like when he passed away or whatever, to prepare for it to be to continue on to the next generation and to just continue on throughout the ages. So he kind of wanted to make sure to get that taken care of before before someone else got a hold of it, and he couldn't, make sure it was taken care of with Disney and everything. So,
well, good guy George giving his money to charity. That's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
The guy probably, he probably feels like he's at the end. He's getting towards the end of his life, and he's done so many amazing things for film and created such a legacy. And people, like you said, people look at it like a religion. I think George really just got to this point where everybody hates me right now for the prequels. It's true. It's sad but true. Like, everybody's just really knocking me for these things, rather than try to continue on with these new movies. I'll just let him have it. You can hurt me, with your words and say all these things and tarnish my name and whatnot. But really, he's kind of giving the people what they want by selling.
You know what else too is, he probably doesn't want to go out being remembered for the last thing he did as Red Tails. So instead now they're like, oh yeah, George Lucas, he gave $4 billion to charity and sold his. So,
right.
But we hear words that Episode 7 is due out in 2015.
Yeah.
And they've mentioned that they want to make maybe a movie every 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And I've even heard rumors that they want to go the Marvel route and even do separate character movies and bring them together, kind of like the Avengers. So I'll go ahead and ask you this, Tyler. Do you think the Star Wars universe? Do you think this is? I mean, it obviously works for the Marvel universe because there's so many different characters and elements to draw from. Do you think Star Wars universe is broad enough to do this?
Absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, the phenomenon effect that Star Wars had on generations, starting in the 70s and throughout the 80s, 90s, and today, there's just so much fan fiction out there. There's so much extended universe. There's so many different characters that Lucas created along with other novelists and different people. It's just a gigantic universe that you can pull as much money from as you possibly can.
And I think that's key to expand it out, because the whole problem with the prequels and the original trilogy is that it made the universe seem so small. I mean, George created characters like Jar Jar Binks and stuff like that, which was it was completely dreadful, and we all agree on that. But at the same time, he brought in Jango Fett and stuff like that. I mean, I know Jango Fett's popular from the EU and stuff like that, but when he's the basis of the clone army and the son shows up in the next trilogy, it makes things seem so small. And then you have, and then like you and I have touched on before, having Anakin be from Tatooine makes it seem so small. Why did he have to be from the same planet that his son grew up on?
It's it's like he's trying to say it's like a small world. And Anakin grew up on Tatooine just like Luke. Right. Anakin built C-3PO. Right. C-3PO and R2 have been friends for decades.
Which disappoints me. He couldn't program C-3PO to have a better personality than Butler, but whatever.
And you know what else is funny too? I was just going on a tangent here. Yeah. Basically, he builds C-3PO, right? Yeah. But there are other models of C-3POs in the original trilogy.
Right.
So did Anakin really just build this whole line of droids, or did he take a pre-built C-3PO unit off the shelf and assemble it?
He saw something another kid did and cheated.
There you go. Yeah.
And I guess this brings me to my next question. and I'll go ahead and point this at you, Jordan, is now that episode 7, 8, 9 are coming, and we've heard that Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford are interested in reprising their roles.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to see, I guess basically the extended universe where they put Luke's a Jedi Master in a temple training up and coming Jedi, and Han Solo and Leia's children? Do you think we're going to see something like this?
I mean, I think it's a possibility, but they seem to have said they want to stray away from EU because I think you start getting into copyright issues and stuff like that. So you want to kind of come up with your own idea. But I also think that it's dangerous to go in EU direction just because, as I said, it continues to make the universe too small. And I'd like them to be there to kind of as a passing of the torch to say, you've seen these characters before, this is all still the same universe. But they need to bring up some new characters and kind of go off on a different way. I do want to see Jedi stuff because, Jedis and Sith and stuff like that are always kind of part of the Star Wars universe. But I would like them to just be sort of cameos in the beginning of 7, and we kind of move on from there.
As you know, and as much as I totally agree, and as much as we as fans of Star Wars really would love to see the original characters back and in all their glory, they're really not going to be in all their glory.
Right.
It's the same scenario of what Lucas ran into when fans they just every fan in the world had their own vision of what a new Star Wars movie was going to be, and it could never really meet anybody's expectations. Yeah. And so with this new one, if they do it right, it could be something altogether great and new. And I know I personally would like to see it maybe not rely so much on the current cast, but definitely have them in it. It'd be awesome to see the original people reprising their roles.
Yeah.
But maybe, like you said, kind of pass it off, new angle, new blood.
Kelly, as far as your experience with the Star Wars films, do you have like a real strong affinity towards them? Or is there something you want to see in the next set of films?
Well, the thing is, I'm curious since they did. We've seen a few animated movies come out with Star Wars, Clone Wars, and stuff. I'm wondering, since they bought Pixar back in 2006, if they want to maybe bridge a gap between those and maybe do a Pixar Star Wars movie. I don't know if that's something you guys think that they would do.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Like a Boba Fett Pixar movie.
Yeah.
That's
Admiral Akbar.
Yeah.
It's a trap!
Look at him, he deserves his own cartoon.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But
they've kind of said that they want to do, of course, 7, 8, and 9 in the upcoming years, but it seems like they also want to, expand with it. So I think that would be a good way to expand and bring Pixar into it and do something.
Well, it's like this week, I think Lucasfilm said they don't want to just do a Star Wars title every 2 to 3 years. They want to have 2 to 3 Star Wars films, or 2 to 3 films in general every year.
Every year.
So that would obviously bring in Pixar and animation and stuff like that, because it's not really financially viable to do 3 live-action films a year.
Yeah.
So you can do other projects, which would be interesting to see Pixar do, French characters and stuff.
They do Ewoks movie.
Yeah, another Ewoks movie.
Ewoks are right for Pixar.
I had like a small nightmare when I heard about this acquisition. It was that, what if Disney did something that everybody was afraid of, and they made Star Wars a kids franchise, completely.
Yeah.
So episode 7 is called the Endor Parade, and they send Ambassador Jar Jar over to Endor to recruit the Ewoks into the Senate, and they lose the recipe for the special space cake or something, and Wicket and Jar Jar go on a mission to find the recipe.
That sounds like a blockbuster film right there.
I actually am a little more intrigued by that now. See it. I'm a sucker.
Yeah, well, there's always somebody who there's the Star Wars apologists who will defend anything that Star Wars ever made. I don't know, maybe there's even people out there who defend the Star Wars Christmas special. So
I'll defend it just because it was hokey.
Yeah,
but it's
B. Arthur's in it.
Yeah.
Are you sure you want to bring up the Christmas special? I think that thing is ripe for a whole other episode of Ultness.
B. Arthur.
Well, yeah, but I think we have a lot to look forward to, and this is a positive thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the general consensus among everybody now, is that can't be worse than the prequels, and it's out of George's hands now.
That in itself is a blessing.
And that's the greatest thing too, is that where George ran the show in the past, now we have all these other minds coming together, and they can all mold it together. Whereas before, George was surrounded by a bunch of yes men. So
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
So now that we Disney has the funds to pick up a lot of talent, a lot of writers, directors. Who are some aspiring directors, writers you want to see involved with future Star Wars projects, Tyler?
Well, I actually feel like it would be it'd be interesting if they did go with some old blood. And the guy that comes to mind, and the guy I feel like is best suited for the job, is Joe Johnston. And Joe Johnston, as you may or may not know, he did the film. He did a whole bunch of films, and he's always been kind of remarked as a Spielberg kind of director, and so people go to him when they want a very Spielberg-esque film. So in the past, he made Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, he made Jumanji, he made Rocketeer, and Captain America most recently. And so I think with that kind of track record, some great films, some duds here and there, but I think most of all he has a good feel for a Star Wars kind of film, that kind of fun family, but also get some darkness in there stylistically and whatnot. I think he's really apt, and he actually worked on the original Star Wars trilogy as some sort of supervising special effects person with Lucasfilm. I'm not exactly sure of the credit, but he has his hands dipped into the Star Wars franchise already, so I feel like he actually might be really well suited for carrying it on, perhaps.
And I understand the argument of an established director, but like in New Blood, I think is more important because you look at guys like Duncan Jones who did Moon and Source Code, and then you have, of course, Neil Blomkamp who did District 9. And I'm not saying those are necessarily directors I want directing the Star Wars films, but I think when you have someone who has a unique vision, specifically a unique sci-fi vision, it'd be good to kind of bring them into Star Wars, because I'm sure there's no doubt they were influenced by Star Wars at some points. All I ask is that the person they bring in have a familiarity with the source material and respect the source material, and then be able to bring their own kind of spin on it. So, I understand the argument for having someone who's proven, because you can kind of know what they're bringing to the table, but at the same time they might shoehorn themselves into tropes that they're more used to. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Good stuff, guys.
I am your father.
Well, we're going to go ahead and close up today's episode. And next week, we're going to be talking about, it's going to be a film episode. We're going to be talking about some more recent releases, such as Wreck-It Ralph, Skyfall, Man with the Iron Fist, slightly, and Cloud Atlas. So join us next time. And as always, please feel free to comment on what you think about the Star Wars acquisition and what your opinions are on it. And you can follow us on Twitter at Ultness. And as always, feel free to visit our website, ultness.com. And until next time, I think we're going to go watch some Star Wars and hang out with these Nerfers here. There's two
okay. Ewok movies.
Okay. There's the Battle for Endor and the Great Journey.
The Great Journey.
Or the Caravan of something.
The Ewok Adventure, I think it's called, actually.
Yeah, whatever it is.
But yeah, it's like a subtitle Caravan.
There's some TV movies.
It's like late 80s, right?
Yeah, late 80s.
I've never even heard of it.
It's not Twilight. You're not going to pay attention.
There's not vampires.
Have you ever seen that Ewok rape face meme? where he's like, prepare your anus. That's where it comes from.
I did not hear about that, but now I will know.
Oh, I love that meme. Prepare your anus.
Diabetes Man was in there. Wilford Brimley.
Diabetes.
Yes, he was. He was in Battle for Endor.
Battle for Endor. He was a grumpy old
man.
man.
An old hermit.
Yeah. Was
he living on Endor?
He's living on Endor.
He was living on Endor with a little hokey little creature, buck-toothed creature.
Yes.